My name is Richard Mundell and I'm the Chief Product Officer at TRG Screen. In 2021, I gave a presentation for the DKF conference themed around the 2003 Aaron Eckhart and Hilary Swank film, The Core, and you can find that video to watch on our YouTube channel. Now, The Core is not a great movie. It's got some great actors in it, but the chances are if you've watched it, you've forgotten about it already, and The Core is not going to be appearing on many people's top 10 movie lists. So I've picked a much better movie this year, and that is science fiction masterpiece, The Matrix. And can you believe that was released pre-millennium in 1999, which is making me feel very old. In this presentation, I'm going to talk to you about how much market data there is, not in the Matrix, but in the real world, what a market data spend management system does, and some of the optimization opportunities it will produce data on, and introduce the concept of insights, all tenuously themed around the 1999 Keanu Reeves movie, The Matrix. So, why The Matrix? That's because I'm inspired by this iconic visual. In the film, this is the code of the Matrix. To normal humans, it's just a jumble of random numbers and symbols. But to our film's hero, Neo, he has special powers that allows him to read and interpret the Matrix. But this jumble of numbers reminds me a lot of market data management and the difficulty in getting insight into how much you're spending and to spot opportunities to optimize that spend amongst all of this noise. Now, market data management systems record a lot of information, a huge amount of granular data on your subscriptions, but understanding it and getting actionable insights from it can be incredibly difficult. Of course, if you don't have a market data management system, you're not even seeing the matrix. At best, you're getting static. If your market data is not being managed in a purpose-designed spend management system, there's a lot of financial risk you're taking with keeping your costs under control with what is likely to be a multi-million-dollar subscription spend. And there's a lot of market data out there. In 2021, the global spend on market data was $35.6 billion US, and that figure is sourced from the well-respected Burton Taylor annual benchmark study. That's up almost 7.5% year on year. That's a lot of market data. And TRG Screen estimates that only 45% of that is managed in a purpose-designed market data spend management system. Well, you might be there thinking, well, I have this in Ariba or Coupa or iValuer or my accounts payable system or a contract management system, or I've shoehorned this into ServiceNow, or I'm using Excel. Those systems are great for general spend, general contracts, general accounts payable. Well, maybe not Excel. If you're using Excel for accounts payable, I'd suggest you get something designed for the job. But market data is a special and complex beast. Service from one vendor can be delivered over another vendor's platform or feed, and you could be billed by a third vendor and even under contract by a fourth vendor, and that's just a microcosm of the complexities that you might encounter for market data. So those other systems might be able to tell you that you say have 2.7 million being spent with Refinitiv this month, but it won't be able to provide you with details down to the user of which individual subscriptions they have. Early on in the movie, Neo is offered the choice of a red pill or a blue pill. The blue pill would return him to his previous life, oblivious to the fact he was inside the Matrix. The red pill would free him from the Matrix and show him how deep the rabbit hole goes. If you're one of those people who's leaving 16 billion to manage itself, I'm guessing you're sucking on a blue pill at the moment. But it's not too late to take the red pill and join the 45% of people who are proactively managing their market data. So if you haven't taken the red pill yet, let me explain to you some of the key features of a market data spend management solution. The first key input into a market data management system is your contracts. Not just the vendors that you have relationships with and the date ranges and some high-level values, but actually the details of which services are delivered over those contracts under what pricing structure. Second key input is details of your employees. Who in your organization is going to be consuming those services and which departments or cost centers they live within. And by then bringing these two things together, you can track an inventory of who in your organization has which products and services, and down to the exact detail of the commercial terms and the pricing for those things. That then means when you receive your invoicing in from your vendors, you can actually predict exactly what you're going to be invoiced and reconcile your invoices down to the individual line item and make sure that you're being billed correctly, and making sure that you and the vendor agree on the pricing structures and the commercial terms and conditions for those services and who has what. This also then becomes a hub for managing your orders going out to vendors, allowing your users to place orders, get the internal approvals they need at the correct pricing based on your understanding of the contracts, and then have those orders sent out to vendors for them to fulfill. And then crucially out of this comes your financial postings, allowing you to actually charge your users, their cost centers, their departments with the exact correct amounts for the subscriptions they're consuming. And of course, bring out information that you can then report on. And we're going to get to that piece later on. So the key here to a spend management system is having all of that information so you can track your exact terms for each individual service, track the inventory of who has those services, predict your invoices, keep your vendors honest to billing you correctly, and report on not just your high-level costs, but detailed costs down to the most granular level. So What's that going to give you? There's a lot of basic low-hanging fruit that you get from having this that you wouldn't if you were doing this manually. So for instance, as people leave the firm, you can feed that in automatically. You have an inventory of who has what. The system can tell you what needs to be cancelled, so you're not paying for services for people who've left. And make sure that you actually understand the exact pricing and the costs that you're going to save from having this. Duplicated services. Again, it's something quite unique to market data where you might have the same service such as an exchange feed over multiple different platforms. So having a system that can identify those duplicates and get rid of them is very, very important. Contract renewals. Vendors love a contract automatically rolling, normally with automatic price escalation, but that's going to be a bad thing. You want to make sure you're on top of every contract ahead of it renewing so you can negotiate the best possible deal with that vendor that's fit for purpose for your upcoming needs. Surveying. Really important. If you know who in your organization has which products and services ahead of a contract coming up for renewal, you can actually survey your users, check to see if they still need the service, and actually check their sentiment, see if they're happy with the service. Because sometimes you ask your users, they're not actually as happy as they could be with that service, and you can use that in your vendor negotiations. Another key thing here is managing your compliance risk, particularly around compliance with your exchange agreements. It's really important to be on top of making sure you're declaring the correct amounts of your subscriptions and that you're using things within the terms of your contracts before those pesky exchange auditors come knocking. So this isn't meant to be an exhaustive list of what a spend management system can do, but that's some of the key things, the key capabilities that you get from having such a system. And then you have a wealth of information about your market data spend that all ends up here in this bucket. Now, I did watch all 4 Matrix movies to find a screen capture of a bucket in the Matrix, and there isn't a bucket in the Matrix. So I did some extensive Googling on the subject, and I found a Matrix branded fishing bucket. So there is our Matrix bucket, full of all of the data that we've collected about our market data subscriptions. And what's inside it? Yep, you guessed correctly. It is lots and lots of raw data that is incredibly hard to interpret. Now, of course, it doesn't look like the Matrix. It looks more like this. A market data report, a long elementized market data report of all of your subscriptions. Or a great big spreadsheet of all of your subscriptions. Really tough to interpret, and you might as well just be reading the Matrix. In order to interact with the Matrix, Neo, Trinity, and our heroes have to be directly connected into the system. Now, I'm not too keen on having an electrical probe stuck in the back of my head, so we need to evolve. Let's look at the levels of evolution of business intelligence that we can bring to bear for our market data spend. Start off here, data, the information you track about their users, their subscriptions, usage, activity, often captured in Excel. Reports assemble this data into a basic structure. And on the evolutionary scale, this is where most business applications and market data spend management applications stop. We need to evolve further. The next step here is analytics, using tools to discover the patterns and trends gleaned from our data. So that's a vast improvement. But what we're trying to get to here is, on the right here, insights, the story of the data, the aha light bulb moment, which tells you what's going on in your spend landscape and how you should take action to take advantage of it. Now, in my Matrix analogy, market data managers are usually somewhere here between data and reports. So insights is where we need to be. That's where we need to evolve to. So let me give you an example of the evolution, starting with data and ending up with insights. So here we have some very basic data on screen. My company's spend on market data, 2020 compared to 2021. And you can see we've got just 2 simple numbers here. And you can see, well, actually my cost went up a little over 3 million. That's quite a large cost increase. So let's try and explain that because the data is not telling me much about it. So I can plot that as a chart, another flavor of chart. Again, it's not very helpful. It's not really showing me the story of what's going on. So maybe we can start to kind of evolve to more of an analytics level here, where we can actually start to break down the costs, slice and dice them a little bit. And this is actually more interesting. This is showing me that actually most of my vendor spend has stayed relatively the same, but vendor X has gone up quite a lot. It's not understanding why, it's not showing me the reason, but okay, it's a little bit more insightful, but we still have a way to go. Now, to start really understanding the story, we want to actually analyze what are the changes for vendor X from across the 2 years. So we can actually see, you know what, there's some ads, there were some price changes with the vendor, and some cancellations. So again, more interesting, still not telling me the true story of what's going on in my landscape. But we can evolve to a true insights view of our spend change over these 2 years by actually seeing that I added a whole bunch of terminals here for a new business line, as well as other new joiners joining the firm. And for those price changes where my vendor prices have changed, well, actually, you know what? I've actually had an uplift of my license to handle that new business line. And I've actually negotiated a better than inflation price increase for the rest of my services. And of those cancellations, well, you know what? I'm actually doing a pretty good job of cancelling terminals for those people who've left and turning off things that are unused. So I'm actually doing a really good job of keeping my costs under control. So from that initial headline of, wow, my costs have gone up 3 million, that's a bit scary. Instead, actually, I can see that my costs have gone up because I'm facilitating the addition of a new business line to my organization. And actually, I'm doing a very good job of managing my costs, turning off unused subscriptions, and making sure I'm getting the best possible vendor deals. That is the insights view of my costs. So with that, we've moved on from the matrix to seeing a much clearer picture of what's going on in our market data subscription landscape. We can now interpret the data and actually get a story of what's going on. And look, I can see those grumpy 3 market data auditors. So they're watching us from afar, but let's move on quickly before they approach us again. So how do we escape the matrix into a world of insights? In the movie, Neo is rescued by the crew of the hovercraft Nebuchadnezzar. But in the real world of market data, we can escape the matrix by insisting on a paradigm shift from our market data spend management vendors, moving from tools to play with buckets of data to try and answer questions ourselves, to dashboards and visualizations giving answers tailored to our job role. Automated trend analysis, commentary, and highlighting of outliers, so we can see the true story of our market data subscription landscape and truly optimize it and see the sun rise in the real world. There's over 16 billion of market data that isn't being properly managed out there. So if that's you, get yourself a spend management system. But if you have a spend management system already, great. But if you're sifting through buckets of data and trying to interpret the matrix yourself, you need to be moving on to using software that gives you actionable insights, which helps tell you the story and helps you optimize your market data landscape. To wrap up, 60 seconds on TRG Screen, and you'll be unsurprised to hear that we provide a comprehensive spend management solution which can help you optimize all aspects of your market data spend. At the core of our offering is insights, providing cutting-edge analytics, dashboarding, trend analysis, and business intelligence to tell you the story of your market data landscape, giving you that call to action, that light bulb moment with actionable insights. And if you're part of that 16 billion but you don't have time to manage this yourself, we can provide a complete or bespoke managed service or wrapper around it to give you all of the benefits, optimizations, and insights. This is available as part of our brand new optimized platform, providing these capabilities as a single best-of-breed solution. Thank you for spending your time watching this presentation, and for more information on how to get insights to optimize your market data spend, please don't hesitate to contact us here at TRG Screen.